Good afternoon, everyone. Let me ask you, who is number one? Do you know what I'm referring to? Today is the day of the big game, right? The Super Bowl. I'm rooting for the Seattle Patriots, by the way. I have to be diplomatic about this. But in a little over 6 hours, we'll have kickoff. In 3.5 hours or so after that, we'll know who is number one. One team will be determined to be number one after approximately 113 million people watch the game. They will watch 11 players on each team chase after an oblong leather ball around a 100-yard field for about 60 minutes and see commercials that are worth $4 million per 30-second, and then we'll know who's number one. May I suggest that our readings today are precisely about answering that question, and the answer is not someone from Seattle or New England, but someone who was born in Bethlehem, raised in Nazareth, Palestine that is, suffered, died, and rose again for you and me. Our readings today are really about the first commandment. Who is number one in our life? Who do we choose to worship? Who's first for us? It is Jesus himself who shows us through his words and his power that he's number one. In our first reading, we hear in the book of Deuteronomy, Moses prophesied that there will come a great prophet. And speaking on behalf of the Lord, it is Moses who says, "This was well said, I will raise up for them, the people of Israel, a prophet like you, Moses, from among their kin, and I will put my words into his mouth, and he shall tell them all that I command him." The prophets of the Old Testament following Moses said that prophet to come will be greater than Moses. And then we hear in the gospel that someone has arrived that the people are astounded by. This Jesus of Nazareth enters into a synagogue and teaches them. And St. Mark tells us the people were astounded at his teaching. Not only that, but when he casts out the demon, it's the demons who say, "I know who you are, the Holy One of God." This one is number one. I think it's important for us to understand that in Jesus' time, those who taught with authority precisely because they were quoting great teachers. They gained their authority simply by saying, "This is what so-and-so says." And if they were quoting a great authority, their words then had authority. And that teacher, of course, was quoting from another authority all the way back to Moses himself. We know from the Old Testament that Moses learned what he taught the people from God. And so thus, your authority was established on who you quoted. In the case of Jesus, he doesn't quote anyone. And when he casts out this demon in the gospel, he doesn't do it in someone else's name. He speaks with his own authority. He acts with his own power. He is first because he is God. And I think all of this really leads us to the first commandment in our life. Is Jesus Christ really number one? Is he first? Remember the first commandment. I am the Lord your God. I brought you out of the land of Egypt. You shall not have false gods besides me. The first commandment is first because it's first. And And it's my contention that our lives are set in place, and they go in a particular direction, all based on this first of the 10 Commandments. If we'd only learn to put that commandment profoundly, deeply into our life, making God first in all things, then all the other 9 would go just fine. And our life would be set on that direction that ultimately finds its end in heaven. In other words, if only you and I could really, deeply, profoundly, and with complete commitment live up to that first commandment. I am the Lord your God. I brought you out of the land of Egypt. You shall not have false gods besides me. I think St. Paul refers to that very beautifully in our second reading, where he talks about anxieties. Do you have them? Yes. You and I have a lot of anxieties, a lot of things to worry about. And Paul says, I should like you to be free of anxieties. And he says, there are people that are anxious about so many things. And he brings up the example, however, of what he calls an unmarried man. And he says, they can be dedicated to the Lord and anxious about Him. I think that's a great advice for all of us, no matter what our state in life might be, no matter what our vocation is. The only real worry and anxiety that we ought to have, which is no real anxiety at all, is to make sure that the Lord is first in my life. That I don't choose anything else instead of Him. That my decisions are made in light of my faith in Him. That those things that could cause me to be anxious are always put into the context of my trust in Him. And those things in my life that can sometimes take over my time, my effort, and be sources of anxiety, be seen not as idols, not as things that I should worry about. God has, as He tells us in the Gospel, every hair on our head counted. Now, for some of us, that may not be a difficult thing. But He has. Why do we not make Him first in our life? The one who loves us like none other. The one who has given His very life for us. The God of gods who speaks with authority and acts with power that only God Himself can claim. He is number one in our life. Practically speaking, I think in our life, we should really do our best to take all the obligations and duties that we have and make sure that those things don't become more important than our religious obligations. When we want to pray, we have all sorts of ideas that enter our head and other things that we have to do, and we end up idolizing those other ideas and things and don't have a real daily prayer life. Why? We haven't put God first in our life. We learn so much about our job and about the stock market and about our favorite football team, but how much do we know about our faith? When we make a decision, we ought to be sure that our decision is always informed by a good conscience. A conscience that takes first into account my faith, what the church teaches, and then from that context, make those decisions. Sunday Mass. Sometimes it's difficult for people to come because they have competing interests. My shopping to do, my work to be done, my sports to be watched. But do you hear the problem? My. I have taken the place of Him. Him who ought to be number one in my life. And so, my brothers and sisters, may we not be anxious about anything but the Lord. Indeed, the Lord God has come, and He is the Holy One of God. At about 9:30 or 10 p.m. tonight, we'll all know who the number one football team is. Remember, it's going to be the Seattle Patriots. But we don't have to wait until then, for we know who is number one in our life, and his name is Jesus Christ.